Shri Madhuri Dandekar Madam, and the dignitaries join with us on this online virtual
Manoj,
organizing this webinar on the subject of role of independent directors. Today's faculty will throw light on this subject and all of us will get clarity on this issue. Our Maharashtra Tax Practitioner Association is working on state level. Day after day, the association has spread its wings to enroll the tax professional from all over India. I am taking this opportunity to appeal all of us to add more and more members from all over India. We arrange various seminars, crash courses, study circles meetings, NTC throughout the year, and many more programs on the taxation subjects. Our association arranged National Tax Conference on 11 and 12 November 2021. It is one of the prestigious events of the year. Honorable Finance Minister, Minister of State Finance of India, and Minister of State of Finance of Maharashtra coming to Pune. I am appealing all professional brothers to join this National Tax Conference. Once again, welcome all the participants and the lecturer in this webinar and giving super thanks to all for coming together one and again. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra. Over to Dinesh.
thank you, Manoj Chidagigarji, for very nice address and also sharing that you are organizing National Tax Conference. So kindly share the link or invitation on the with Vivek Jain sir, then we can circulate among members and it can reach many people. Thank you.
Sure,
Yeah.
sir.
So thank you once again, and now I have pleasure in introducing our head of our COE Finance, Center of Excellence Finance, Shri Vivek Jain Sahab, CA Vivek Jain Sahab. He is a very experienced CA, chartered accountant, and he is director of our Center of Excellence. So he is having rich experience of over 3 decades in finance, and he's also a mentor of startups. So I don't want to take much time of yours, but I want him to speak for a few words about today's webinar and generally about PMA. Vivek Jain sahab, just kindly spare 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. You have given me the 2 minutes, sir. I'll take 1.5 minutes.
Okay.
Welcome everybody, and really we'll be going to enrich today once again by the PMA through this webinar. The finance, it is a subject related to the finance, again the role of independent director, because largely the company secretary and chartered accountants are the person who are when they are in the corporates, they have to face and look after the independent directors and their role also. So the finance is the backbone of any business. And in this today's competitive world, when there are so many, the competition is there, the compliances are there, it becomes more relevant and more important. And particularly when it comes to the corporate affairs issues, which is related to which deal with the role of independent directors, it is very, very tricky and critical for any organization, particularly for the growing organization where they don't have that kind of the big infrastructure which a large conglomerate is having. So definitely, I'm sure that we'll be enriching ourselves. At the PMA, it's our vision to empower every stakeholder in the sphere of the society to enrich them, bring to their knowledge the pertinent issues, relevant issues, spread the knowledge, and this is what we are doing, and this is one step closer to that and a step towards that. Thank you.
So without taking much time now.
Okay. So thank you very much and good evening to all. Is my presentation visible to everyone?
Yes.
And thank you PMA for giving me this opportunity. Today's topic which is given to me is really tricky. I am not the authority on this topic as such, but from my experience of working in corporate in a closely held companies, gave me an opportunity to work very closely with the boards. So I'm using that experience to basically add some informative, to do this session little informative as far as the practical approach for being an effective director, what it should be. I'm trying to, this is my effort to cover in that. So let me start with this that what we are going to discuss for maybe another 30 minutes is what should be the practical approach for being an effective what is the role of the board? Board means board of directors. Now, board of directors effective and significant entity both in public and private enterprises. It basically is required to act as a bridge between the stakeholders, shareholders, and the management. Now, this is a little modified definition because in earlier years also, I mean, for many years, board was there, board has been basically giving the directives for the management to work and how to run the operations. They were in a position to give the directives to that. But traditionally, the board was acting as more focused to be how to be profitable or how to be economically benefiting the shareholders. So the definition of stakeholder is now being made much wider, and that is the reason how the board is behaving, who are the constituent, I mean, who are the people who are in the board, and how they are delivering. This aspect has become little more important. So now what is expected is the board should be composed of the people of highest integrity and competence. The management of the businesses are expected to be more diverse, more inclusive, more professional, and they are expected to bring in the knowledge-based inputs which will help the businesses to grow sustainability and transparency in their operations. Now, this is the new angle which has come into picture in last few years. And that is from that is there is a need of the appointment or introduction of independent director has been raised. Now, why there is a need? See, give the more importance to the word independent director. We will come to the definition as such of the independent director little later. But let us look at for 2 minutes. Let us look at why this need had arisen. See, in 1991, when we had I mean, it's a huge market. Indian market is a huge market, and it attracted a lot of capital markets, a lot of businesses from all over the world. Now, why this attraction was there? Market size was not the only reason why the good businesses were competing to enter India. A good governance system also was some reason, rather major reason, why the businesses were ready or eager to compete, enter in the Indian market, compete to each other, along with having a joint venture or the joint businesses with the Indian companies. Why? Because the compliances, the transparency in the transactions, the accountability, and the fulfilling of the fair expectations of the all stakeholder was being followed by the Indian businesses. So let us look at the definition of the stakeholder. As I mentioned before, earlier only shareholder used to be the major stakeholder in running any business, and therefore making a good profit or maximizing profit used to be a major focus of running any business operations. Now, with the global exposure, with the more and more focus on the transparency and accountability, and more on the sustainability, the definition of stakeholder is widened a lot, and now it includes the shareholders, customers, suppliers, employees, and the social factors and the economy, which basically also looks at the environmental impact of the business, social impact on the business, and of course the commercial and economic impact on the businesses on the entire economy as such. Now, how does one ensure that all these stakeholders' interests are protected or at least not put to the disadvantage? So naturally, the responsibility of ensuring the same falls upon the board. And hence, it was a need that we need to have the board which consists of some independent people. Independent means independently thinking, independently, they are able to work independently. They are not related to founders or the investors or the major shareholders or the management people. So that is a broader definition of the independent director. So now let us see how this process started. Actually, in July 2011, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs brought in a national voluntary guidelines on social, environmental, and economic responsibilities of business. So this concept of sustainability towards social, environmental, and economic responsibility was brought in by the Ministry of Affairs as a guideline. Slowly, after a lot of deliberations with various bodies, business bodies, the governing bodies, it became a recommendatory guideline, and now it has become a compulsory guideline which is applicable and made it compulsory for the businesses to follow. So our businesses are governed by major two statutes. One is the Companies Act, and one is the SEBI. SEBI basically governs the listed companies and is governed through the document called listing agreement. So these are the two major statutes which define, govern, and monitor how the company should be run. Now, why this is important? Because as I said, not only the shareholders, which is a very large number in case of listed companies, and all other shareholders, the customers and employees and suppliers, have to be taken care of for their protection of their interest. And therefore, these two acts, I would say, or these two statutes are working now in hand and bringing in lot of, they're putting in lot of efforts to bring in a transparency and reliability on the operations of the companies. Now, this was still a recommendatory. As a definition, none of the statutes had defined what is independent director. But there was a jolt to the entire system. Some scams like Satyam scam, they actually threw open the inadequacies in the corporate governance standards, and which therefore led to make these provisions compulsory by the amendments in both the acts as a compulsory compliance and the monitoring mechanism through the boards. So now, who are the companies who are required to appoint the independent director? So as per Companies Act, these are the categories that all listed public companies have to appoint independent director. Now there are how many number of independent director out of total board, etc., etc. There are various provisions in that. I'm not going to go into the details because this is now accessible to everyone. Who anybody can go through the Companies Act and the provisions. And I'm coming to that during the eligibility. All these points will be taken care of. So I'm not getting into the details of this, but just to give us in nutshell that who are the companies. So the companies having paid up share capital of 10 crore or more, or having a turnover of rupees 100 crore or more, or the companies whose outstanding loans, deposits, or debentures put together are more than 50 crore. So with this definition, a majority of mid-size and above companies do fall under the category who are required to appoint the independent director. Under the SEBI guidelines, of course, all listed companies are required to appoint the independent directors. Now, who can become the independent director? So, as we said, Section 49 of the Companies Act defined who can become. I'm not getting into the details as such, because there are the basic requisitions like who should not be the independent director, who should, he should not be the relative of the founder, should not be the relative of the director, or should not be interested party or dealing with the either directly with the company or the subsidiary companies, etc., etc. Those provisions are already there. But so the person who satisfies all these conditions can become an independent director. The person also has to register himself as in the data bank with the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. And this is very important, the person is required to pass an online proficiency self-assessment test conducted by the institute. Now, if suppose a person is interested in becoming an independent director, first he will have to, of course, register with the corporate affairs, and he gets 1 year to prepare and pass this online proficiency self-assessment test with by payment of some fees. And there is a guide and there is a help provided by Ministry of Affairs. There is a module about 42 modules which a person needs to go through, study, and then take this the test. Now, of course, there are like exemptions are there who is already like a director on some board for like more than 10 years. They know the provisions. So why this proficiency test is important or has been made it compulsory? Because see, while conducting the businesses, apart from the business angle, apart from the operation angle, the compliance part is very crucial and very important. And there are a lot of liabilities which directly or indirectly are applicable to the directors. So this is the effort by the Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, to at least educate the people about the basic requirements or the basic provisions about the Companies Act and more on the compliance part. So they should be at least aware of how the functions should be, how the operation should be conducted, how the company should be run, what are the compliance part, what are the requirements as far as the Companies Act provisions are concerned, etc. And therefore, this proficiency test has been made compulsory. So this test, basically someone who undergoes this will explain, it does explain in detail the entire provisions of the Companies Act, the eligibility, non-eligibility, duties, liabilities, limitations, etc., etc. So I'm, to be honest, not going into that detail. So, but to bring in some highlights, these are the tenures. Of course, these all will be covered under the test. So the person can hold the office for only 5 consecutive years. He is eligible for the reappointment only by passing the special resolutions, and he cannot be an independent director for 2 consecutive terms. It means not more than 10 years with one company. So these are certain provisions. Basically the tenure, the reappointment provisions. We will see further the declaration provisions, and the information need to be made available on the websites, etc. All these things are basically made from the point of view that the appointment and removal of the independent director should not be purely with the hands of management or the founders or the major stakeholders in that. Government has tried to bring in this provision. They might look little cumbersome and a little lengthy for the compliance part, but the basic purpose behind that is the independent director should be able to work independently. That is the major crux behind that. So these are basically requirements or the provisions, major provisions about the tenure of the directorship under the SEBI. If we look at the committees under the Companies Act, it has been made compulsory that these are the committees on which the independent director has to be there, either in majority or at least one. And for any decisions in these committees, the presence of the independent director has to be there as a part of a quorum. It means even though he is a member, if he is absent while taking certain decision, that is not allowed. So if we look at these committees, what government is trying to do is wherever there are the stakeholders other than shareholders are there, those interests are getting protected. For example, in audit committee, what is the purpose of audit committee? Or what do they do? So basically, they ensure that there is a transparency, there are compliances done properly, the governance policies are adhered to, and there is a proper process audit, and the internal audit and the statutory auditors, they do report to the audit committee. So by making sure that the independent directors are a part of this audit committee, or they sometimes chair these committees, government is trying to ensure that these decisions will not get influenced. Same is the case with the nomination and remuneration committee, so that it is trying to avoid the disproportionate benefits to the interested parties or the key management personnel. Therefore, the remuneration committee has to be chaired by independent director. Same is the case with the stakeholder relationship committee. Earlier, it used to be like the whistleblower committee or the investors complaint addressing, etc., etc. But now these committees have been increased in their scope and have been named as a stakeholder relationship committee. So the scope of the committees also have been broadened, and the professional working and monitoring of the working of these committees has been brought in by way of insisting and making it compulsory that it has to be chaired or membered by the independent directors. Corporate social responsibility, of course, everybody knows this is a part of the social responsibility of any business towards the social development, and the CSR basically falls under that. So, I mean, this part is like known to everyone. We also can have a look at the annual disclosures, which various acts is making it compulsory. Again, as I explained, these disclosures are basically a way of ensuring that the removal of the independent director, the reason for that is not very, I mean, it has to be published, it has to be very transparent, and then it has to be reasonable and true reason for anyone to leave as an independent director. At the same time, when we look at some declarations and the disclosure of the committee memberships, and if we also look at the familiarization programs as per the section 138, etc. These are certain measures which government has imposed on the company and the management to ensure that the independent director becomes much more aware, much more informed about the company operations. There are processes which anyone can like go into the detail while undertaking this test, but basically these programs are formed to ensure that they are made aware, they know about how the company businesses are run, and then only they will be able to perform their job a little more effectively. Website disclosure are again the part of the similar efforts. Now, many of my other colleagues and friends have asked me that why do you think someone should look at this as an opportunity? So this is an opportunity for a lot of people like us. I mean, us means not me only, but many expert people who are there in the audience and otherwise also. A lot of people who have a very specialized knowledge about their own functions, their own area of expertise, and they can use their knowledge to help other businesses for the betterment, for improving, for growing, for doing effectively the businesses of this company by becoming the independent director. They can become, of course, the growth partners. I would say not only as a monitoring or advisory role, but they can become their growth partners. Again, this is another good opportunity for the experts after retirement. And here, after retirement, I'm now, because why this is important, because a lot of people are taking a voluntary retirement by choice, and they want to do something else. They want to be much more useful to many businesses, to the society, etc. This is an extremely good way to get associated and help with your knowledge to the businesses in a more structured manner, I would say. Of course, this is opportunity of earning. I will come to that a little later. Earlier, this was not a very good reason, but yes, very recently there are some amendments to that. I will come to that little later. So once someone decides that the person, I mean, he or she wants to become an independent director, and of course, he ensures that he's an eligible person, and also he also clears the proficiency test, etc. Still, how one can decide whether to join this company or not? So we need to do a little bit of a homework. Homework is necessary everywhere, but then how to do that? Because we really don't know what type of companies are there, how they are operating. So I have tried to jot down few points. These are not exhaustive. These are certain points which are little important to have a look at before anyone. Now, why this is important? The financial statements give basically the profitability and the ratios and top line, bottom line. Everybody is aware of that. But why I have mentioned this as the director report, notes and accounts, and auditor report? Because in the director's report and notes on account, it is very compulsory, and the directors have to mention this as a representative of management. What is the market scenario? What is the management approach and initiatives they have taken towards certain aspects of the management which are responsible to the environmental and social aspects? These are compulsory points which are covered in the director's report and in the notes of accounts about how the company is deciding on certain policies about the accounting and disclosure. So collectively, if we read the director report, notes and accounts, and auditor report, along with the financial statement, you can really get a fair view about the company operations, its profitability, where it is going in terms of the market scenario or market share, and more importantly, what is the management's role and approach towards running the business. All this can be seen from these three reports. The next point is the debt exposure, which is part of the balance sheet. Why this is little important? Because if the company is highly indebted, I mean it's disproportionately on the borrowing funds, then it has certain risks, and then you can always go back to the director report and the notes on, I mean the auditor's report, and see how the management approach is going to be, whether this debt scenario is how they are planning to handle, whether this is a temporary, whether this is being used for expansion of the businesses, etc., etc. So these basically are the statements which you have to go back and forth and interrelate with the provisions and try to understand. The next is the list of key management personnel. Again, this information basically gives you that whether the management is run by professionals, how long they are with the company, and whether they are continued with, because that is also very important. If there is a lot of turnover with the senior people, then definitely that's a little trigger point to find out why this is happening, how the employee policies are reflected, because the continuance of the senior people or the professionals in the as a part of the key management personnel basically reflects a good employee policy. Structure of corporate controls and subsidiaries and cross management, these are little important to understand but little difficult to understand, so maybe we can take help of some financial experts to understand, because these structures are used by management to use, divert, or use the funds in such a manner that not necessarily the excess funds in the company are used for the same businesses. They can be used for the subsidiaries for different businesses, or diverted that. So therefore, how the structures of these subsidiaries and cross managements are there, and what are the controls which they are doing, this aspect has to be looked into before you decide to join any company. Of course, the basic financial ratios, everybody knows that there are certain ratios which reflect the growth, which reflect the health of the financial health of the business. Certain the capital intensive ratios are there, working capital turnaround ratios are there. Everybody knows about these uses of these ratios, but of course, those are little important. Some can be temporary scenarios, some can be permanent scenarios, and how those are being dealt with. Again, go back to the first three reports: the director report, notes and accounts, and the auditor report. Of course, the ROC is the registrar of company. You can always look for ask for the search report from the company secretary, which basically gives the status on the statutory compliances, the security creations, and the debt exposure. So these are the certain things which one needs to look at before someone decides to join as an independent director. Now let us go to once someone joins as an independent director, how does he function in board meeting? For example, the person is an expert in marketing, or he is a purely technical expert, and he has been welcomed on the board because his knowledge is expected to be useful for the growth of the business. But apart from that, there are certain points on which he also needs to make himself aware or educate himself, if not in detail, but at least he should know certain basic things. So what I have tried to do is, I have tried to bifurcate the key points into two categories. One is the compliance related and one is the business related. While conducting the board meetings, under the compliance related points, the statutory compliances under the various acts and statutes are very important. So one has to ensure that the a list is always prepared about what are the applicable acts, what are the due dates, what are the compliances required vis-a-vis what all has been done, and if there are any defaults. One has to insist that this document has been made as a part of agenda of every board meeting and has to be signed by either a CFO, CS, or the CEO. So this brings in the ownership of the compliances. This document has to be made compulsory as a part of board agenda. If we look at the business process and policy compliances, then it is very difficult to define in a very structured manner. So depending on the businesses the company is in, and the size of the company and the market size, etc. Basically, how company is approaching towards this with the help of internal policies, because all the challenges and the growth plans are being executed with the use of business processes and the policies which company adopts from to time in various areas, like a human resource management or the business development policies or the IT policies or the research policies, etc. How are they really a document, or how the board is monitoring the compliance of those, or the following, or the ensuring that the policies are monitored, used in day-to-day operations. This is very important from the understanding the business point of view. So how often these policies are reviewed, how often the recommendations are incorporated into that to bring in the governance, and the how the loopholes are being avoided by reviewing the policies is very important. This should be made part of the board meeting process or the discussions. Again, see, these are some indirect tools one can use, like a participation and membership in various forums, the obtaining the certificates. Why these are little important? Because if a company is or if the company is certified under IATF or ISO, It means they are always in line with the policies and the best business practices being followed in the industry as such, and the company is competing in that manner and also improving on the governances by ensuring that they are competing or participating in these type of activities. So various management tools, whether the management is using like a balance scorecards or TPM or QS, how often they are using these tools to improve their internal processes and strengthen the reliability of the processes can be verified with this. So these are certain, I would say, the key points. Whether the company is doing this, it means yes, they are following these processes. So basically, this gives an indication that the board is reviewing this and they are helping to bring in the good governance practices in the organization as a culture, which is a good thing. And this is a way to review that. Again, if the companies are like a technology driven or market driven, then the point for monitoring do change. For example, if the company is technology driven, then whether the discussions or the focus of the operations, whether are they looking at the sustainability, whether they are looking at the technical advancement, because there is often risk of technology obsolescence. We have seen this in last 5 to 6 years. The advancement is too much in the, take an example of auto component industry. The way the models are changing. Earlier, one model used to run for more than like 7 8 years, but now the models are changing and bringing in new technologies. So how the company who is supplier, for example, to the OEMs, how are they approaching this? How are they taking this into account while ensuring the profitability, but also upgrading? Are they therefore investing enough in the R&D facility, etc., etc.? So these points. So depending on what market size, what segment the company is, these points one needs to jot down as a part of points to be monitored and has to ensure that those are discussed in the board. Same thing, if the company is mainly in the market driven segment, then how they are like ensuring that their growth in the geographical areas, or are they looking at new segments? What are they looking at the product improvement, their product life, etc. So these are certain points which I have tried to bring out here. Of course, it is very difficult to like list everything, but these are the major way how to look at the business operations and the sustainability. More important is sustainability and the effectiveness in continuing to run the businesses profitably. That is the whole purpose. So these are some strategies, whether those are in sync with the vision mission statements. So are there the 3-year plan or 5-year plan in place, etc., etc. These are the points which one has to ensure that these are the points discussed as a part of the board agenda. Now, there are, if someone goes through the test, one can understand that there are a lot of liabilities of the independent director. Of course, every director has been made liable, but independent directors are made little more liable towards certain responsibilities. Now, how one can ensure that he has created a safety net? We call this as a safety net, and he has ensured that he has to keep a track record or a tracking or a mechanism, documentary proof that he has tried to deliver or he has tried to do his job effectively. Every time it may not be possible that he agrees to certain decisions or his opinions are also considered and agreed by everybody. It is not possible. So how he can protect himself? So basically the person has to, this is most important, the person has to make sure that in case he has any point which is different than the decision which is being taken, he has to ensure that his point of view or his objection or his say is recorded in the minutes. It is very important that he doesn't remain silent, because silence is not an option. Silent means you are quietly accepting or agreeing to what is happening. So that doesn't absolve you. If you don't vote is not enough. If you don't agree, you have to vote against, and that is very important. And make sure that you raise this point. You have to ensure that it is recorded in the minutes of the meeting or the minutes of the committees, or the any forum, and the minutes are circulated for your approval before they are confirmed in the next meeting. Normally, minutes of the earlier meeting, be it a committee meeting or a board meeting, are circulated, and then those are confirmed in the next meeting. So one has to ensure that in the circulated minutes, the point which you had raised, or the point that you have raised a dissent or your non-agreement, is recorded there. This is very important to ensure that to show that you have been diligent, you have been actively participating, and you have said your point in spite of the decision might have been taken by a majority of the people, not necessarily unanimously. Not every decision is taken unanimously, but one has to ensure that he has done his job properly.
Madhuri madam, sorry for this one. Kindly, it is already 9 o'clock, so we have to wind it up quickly, madam. Kindly.
You gave me only 30 minutes. Okay. So, few points again to consider, that that before you go into any meeting, do an advanced study of the agenda, make your own notes, have some prior meetings with the management team, or take some inputs from the other directors if you don't understand any other points which are from the different segment or different function. Now coming to the remuneration, very recently, see, earlier the remuneration under section 149 was the independent director used to get a sitting fee, he used to get a reimbursement of the expenses, and a percentage of a profit only when, of course, if the company is making a profit. So it was like a deterrent for many people to join the board, because sitting fee and reimbursement is not something which is very motivating factor, and that's why not many people, professionals, were ready to join the board. So very recently in March, an amendment has been brought in that the non-executive directors and the independent directors who are involved in the policy making, planning, and monitoring exercise by way of being the member of the various committees as well as the board, they do justify their time, because they give a time and then make efforts to do that. And if there are no profits in the company, they don't get anything. So now the amendment has been made that these non-executive directors and the independent directors can get a remuneration annually starting from 12 lakhs a year, can go up to 24 lakhs, and once the company starts making profit, they can take a 0.1% of the capital, effective capital. Effective capital definition is already given in the act, one can go through that. So this is a good relief and a motivation for people to join and then contribute to the management of the companies. So again, there is another recommendation from the SEBI also. As we said, there has to be the amendment in the Companies Act, which Companies Amendment Act has done, and also in the SEBI Act that they have put up the option that there can be a provision of remunerate the IDs, the independent directors, with the employee stock options plans. So yes, there is some remunerations and some return of the efforts which people would be putting as an independent director. So the whole purpose of creating this entity as an independent director, authorizing them, making them responsible for certain duty, is to do what? Basically to ensure maximum value addition to the various stakeholders in a very transparent manner, and act like a link between the stakeholder and management, and in general to ensure the environmental, economic, and social sustainability. So with this, I think I bring my presentation to, I think I have managed within this time, within the time given to me. So thank you very much, and we can, like, if anyone has questions, we can. It is very difficult to cover everything, and but I have tried my efforts to bring in the major points in that.
So thank you, Madam Madhuri Dandekarji, for wonderful session on independent directors. I think it clarifies a lot of questions about independent directors, and also raises the bar that how much responsibility an independent director carries, and then what all responsibilities are there. So we need to prepare for it and play our role very effectively. So very nicely you have brought out these things, madam. So we, on behalf of PMA, really thank you for an excellent webinar, uh, and now we will welcome questions from anybody. So we have one interesting question from Ruby madam. So I'll just read that question. Well, in current scenario of this one. So can you elaborate on this?
Lifting of corporate veil is the terminology or the tool used by mostly the government agencies or the investigating agencies. Let me be very honest. Investigating agencies like a court or the NCLT or the directorate, when there is a major issue about the actual uses of the resources by the company. So this is not very prima facie apparent from the running of the day-to-day operations of the board. It doesn't fall under the purview of the board of directors. On the contrary, this is basically actually then board of directors become answerable to these investigating agencies, who are the stakeholders like the bankers or the lenders or the public in general, who have a major issue with the company, and they have a doubt or they have a reason to believe that there is a major misappropriation of the funds. Then only the investigating agencies go into this tool or go into this terminology like a lifting of the corporate veil, etc. So for the role of independent director, we have, the person has to always be a part of a productive board to run the operations profitably, transparent, and following the corporate governance. So these are two different things, and they do not actually. Those are completely different reasons, and those are the tools which are used by different agencies in a completely different scenario. Here we were talking about how to run the operations effectively. So not very related.
So thank you, madam, for this answer. I hope Ruby madam is satisfied with this. So, Madam Ashan, that if we complete that proficiency test you have mentioned,
Yeah.
How you look for opportunities that become independent director?
So
How you market yourself to become independent director?
You can always put it on your profiles on LinkedIn and all that. Use it in your internal circles that you are eligible and certified independent director. You have to always register yourself in the data bank on the ministry website. So when the companies look for the independent directors, I will give you an update. So there are about 21,174 independent directors registered, and normally the companies look for, if they want to appoint independent director, they look to this data bank maintained by the ministry. This is a very interesting numbers. There are 21,000 and odd independent directors registered, but after the proficiency test has been made compulsory, only 8,273 people have actually passed the proficiency test. So it means the difference between these people will have to resign as an independent director, pass the exam, take the exam, pass the exam, then only they can become eligible. So we can see the opportunities here for anyone who wants to become, who is aspiring to be the independent director. Huge number. 5,500 or and more companies have made search on this database to look for the independent director who are more suitable to their businesses. So this is a platform created by Ministry of Affairs, the Commercial Affairs, that this is a platform where the companies can look for the suitable independent director. The independent director who are eligible, who have passed the exam and who want to be the independent director, they can register themselves. So this is like they have tried to do this as a matchmaking, and so the resources who are available to the companies can look at that. So register yourself in the data bank, make yourself eligible, and of course put on your other profiles like LinkedIn and other platforms.
There is one more question from Juhi Bose, madam, that how long it takes to become, that is after how much time it takes to give exam and result, etc. Any idea?
Okay, the exams are not, these are the self tests. You have to first register, and then on payment of some fees, you get access to all there are 42 modules. Okay, basically these are the 42 modules which explain you section by section, very beautifully designed, section by section, the compliances, the Companies Act provisions, the duties, responsibilities and liabilities of the directors, etc. You can go back and forth and study those. After every module, there is a sample test. So you can test your knowledge for that particular topic. Once you are satisfied, then you can go ahead and do the next topic. Typically, the person is not from finance background. He or she takes about 4 months to complete this course, and it's not very difficult. But you have to go like back and forth, understand, make your own notes. Even if you spend like 2-3 hours a day, within 4 months you can easily clear this exam. And then you are already like there on registered.
Oh, 4 months. Thank you. Oh, thank you. So I think with this I can't see any other question. Vivek ji, with your permission, should we go? I once again request you to participate in PMA's